What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. We are here for the season finale of Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2 Episode 10. So, we start this episode off. We have Monet and Dante. They out on the yacht, living their best life. Monet got some new door knockers that got diamonds all in them, and then she gets a diamond necklace, and she's like, Dante, you are spoiling me, honey. She said, so you planned this out all the way from the beginning? And he was like, absolutely. He said, I've been trying to get you back since I lost you. And he said, now I've been thinking about how we're going to have to move on Lorenzo. We're going to have to be careful. And she was like, wait a minute, hold up. And you said it was a go. You said this is what we was doing. You backing out on me? And he was like, no, I'm not backing out. But we need to establish some alibis. So if we're up in the penthouse, we good to go. And we can send Kane in there to do it. And he was like, you think he'll be able to do it? And she was like, Kane does what I tell him to do. Now, what I had said last week was that all of this was a plan that her and Kane had come up with, that they were planning to set Dante up, thinking that they was going to kill Lorenzo when they was really after Dante, and that Kane was in on it. But then later on in the episode, we see Monet roll up on Kane and give him this whole song and dance about killing Lorenzo, and that's what he need to do for the family. And Lorenzo already putting you, like, I'm the one that's been saving your ass, I'm the one that's always had your back, and Lorenzo already done put Drew in second in command. He not gonna get a business to you. Like, she was really landed on thick, and I was like, what? This doesn't make sense to me, because I'm thinking in my mind I had decided that they had this whole plan set up, but I guess they didn't. So now I was like, all right, well, why wouldn't? So now I'm confused, like, well, is she really gonna kill Lorenzo? Like, and Kane was like, Diana and Drew would hate me if I kill, he was like, that's my father. At the end of the day, that's my father. So then Monet was like, you know what? I'm gonna just have to call Tarik. And he was like, why you always bringing Tarik into something? Tarik don't have nothing to do with this. And he was like, she said, well, Tarik know what it's like. Tarik done it. Tarik killed his father. Now, again, that has got to be the worst kept secret in New York, okay? That Tarik killed Ghost, okay? But once he heard that, then all of a sudden it was, I got it, I'm good, I could do it. What up, child? So we see back at school, Tarik is getting ready for court, and Tarik is looking for Lauren. And Effie is there, like, what are you calling her for? She's fine. She probably threw her phone away. You told her to get off the grid. She's probably off the grid. And Tarik is, like, really, really worried about her. And you could tell that Tarik is nervous as well about going into court, because he tells Effie, he's like, listen, my father set the adoption up so that it's a closed adoption, and I won't know where Yaz is. So you got to promise me, if I go to jail, you'll find my sister for me. Like, you got to promise that you'll do that. And she was like, you trust me to do that? And he was like, you're the only person I can trust. And in my mind, I'm like, no, the hell she can't. You can't trust her. Alert, abort mission. You can't trust Effie. I don't know, y'all. I'm telling y'all, it's something about Effie. I just don't trust her. I do not. So then, we get to court and we see that they find out that, Trace was supposed to testify in court, and Davis is like, wait a minute, Tarik, what in the world does Braden's brother have? Like, what could he know? And so Tarik has to let him know, well, there was this little situation where Trace stole all of our drugs, and Kane sort of kidnapped them, and it was a whole situation. And so, of course, now Davis is like, well, damn, we got to deal with this. And, Tarik was like, well, I actually have an alibi. I was actually with Riley that night, telling Sax, like, I was with your damn niece. And Sax was like, well, I can't call her up to the stand. Like, my sister still ain't speaking to me. Like, we can't bring her in on this. And so Davis is like, well, you probably should have thought that through before you involved your niece in this whole situation. But, he was like, of course, I'll try to figure something out. He was like, we got to try to convince, her to come. So Tarik tries to call Braden, and it goes straight to voicemail. Because, of course, now Tarik is probably trying to figure out how the hell the Trace get in this, right? Now, while this is going on, Zeke is meeting up with Dante. Dante taking him to see his car collection and, all that good stuff. And he's trying to convince Zeke to go with them when they leave. And Zeke was like, I ain't really trying to go nowhere with y'all. I don't trust Monet. And if you trust Monet, I don't know if I can trust you. And, he tells Dante, listen, we family. I'm trying to get to know y'all. I'm trying to build our family back. I want it to be us. You know, you gotta open yourselves up to the family. And he was like, yeah, right. He was like, you lying for Monet now. He said, was Monet really with you the night that Carrie died? And instead of him answering, you know, he gives this whole long explanation about family and loyalty and love. And I was like, that's a fancy way of saying no. That's a fancy way of saying no. So we get back down to the court, and we find out that Trace isn't going to testify in court, but instead it's going to be Braden. Now, the lawyers argue back and forth. Davis tries to, you know, keep him off the stand, but of course, you know, the judge was like, well, let's see what he got to say, and then we'll figure out if there's a problem later. So Tarik is giving Braden the stank eye, like, what the F? Like, dude, what's up? But Braden gets up there on the stand, and Braden basically proceeds to take the whole hit. He's like, listen, all I know is Tarik ain't killed nobody. I was the one dealing drugs. I was dealing drugs at Choke. I was dealing drugs at the college now. And she was like, how can you prove that? Well, how can you prove that? He was like, listen, I created Course Correct. It is all my idea. Like, I was doing it. Tarik had nothing to do with none of that. And she was like, well, how can you prove that? And he pulls out the paperwork. Remember when Tarik needed a legit job and Stern's husband set up the dummy corporation for Course Correct and made Braden the president? Well, Braden pulled out his paperwork proving that he was the president. And so, of course, it made Jenny look so stupid. And the judge was like, this is your own witness has blown up your case. And at this point, the case has been blown up. So, because mind you, they still didn't talk about none of the attorneys. But I mean, none of the murders. But the case has been blown up so much to the point where the judge is like, look at your jury. Like, they're never going to convict at this point. Like, it's been so much, there's so much probable cause. There's so many not probable cause, reasonable doubt at this point. They're never going to convict him. And Jenny has to admit, she said, well, can you at least dismiss the charges with prejudice, meaning I can bring the charges at a later date? And they were like, no, double jeopardy applies. Like, you can't keep coming back. Like, if you can't prove your case, you can't prove your case. So Tarik they end up dropping the charges, and Tarik ends up going free. And remember, Braden's attorney wrote up this airtight situation where they have immunity. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to be in school much longer. But as far as him going to jail, I mean, they can't get him on those charges. So we see Tarik we see Tarik talking to Davis. And Tarik was like, look, I need you to find my sister and call off this adoption. And then I'm out. Like, I'm done hustling. And Method Man was like, well, Davis was like, yeah, right. Like, you've been a hustler since I met you. You don't know nothing else. He said, why are you worried about getting your sister? He said, why don't you finish up school, stack your money, keep hustling, stack your money, and then after you graduate, you can go get your sister. And he was like, I'm not doing that. That's something my father would do. I ain't going out like that. And I'm thinking, what? How did Ghost get into this? Why are you saying this is something that Ghost would do? I don't even understand where this is coming from. But then he gonna say, and you owe me. He was like, you owe me a refund. Braden was the one that got me off, and you've been double dipping anyway. Ain't that some illegal, some unethical shit? And Brother Man was like, excuse me? He said, excuse me? He said, let me explain something to you. First of all, I mean, if you feel like you want to go down to the, the board, to the bar committee and turn me in, that's great. Do what you got to do. But the only way you can tell that story is by admitting that you're guilty and Kane is guilty. So go on and go down there and tell your story. You let me know how that worked out for you. So, of course, Tarik was like, yeah. And I love this because, see, Tarik is used to being able to flip shit and play these Jedi mind tricks on people and getting what he wants. And I think there was a part of him that really thought Davis was going to give him some of his money back. Davis was like, whatever. But Tarik ends up getting a phone call from Monet, and he meets up with Monet. And they talk about, she tells him the deal about killing Lorenzo, getting Kane to kill Lorenzo. She was like, I don't really want him to do it. I just want him, I want him to think that he got to do it, but we're not really going to do that. We're coming up with this other plan. And Tarik was like, yeah, I know who Dante is. He was like, I got his papers. And, he said, I'll go along with your plan on one condition. we don't kill him till I get my money, because he's supposed to give me $2 million to get his papers back. And Monet was like, well, what in the world is in these papers that he can pay you that kind of money? And he was like, he a snitch. Like, I got his paperwork proving that he's a snitch. So now Monet is like, what? He's a snitch. She was like, oh yeah, nah, we gotta kill him now. Like, we and he said, yeah, and once we do this, I'm out. I'm done. And Monet was like, all right, if you help me do this, I'll let you go. You good. You gone. You can be out. So then we see Saxe meeting up with Jenny, and that's when we find out that Lauren is dead. Lauren, now I'm gonna be honest with y'all, until I see a body, I'm not convinced. Now I know that that's probably not gonna be the case. I know the girl probably is dead, but until I see a body, I feel like the writers are giving themselves a back door with Lauren, but I don't know. But of course, Saxe finds out about this, and Saxe is upset because he immediately thinks that Tarik did it, right? And then he proceeds to open up to Jenny and let her know that, you know, he got desperate. They were talking about Carrie and whether Carrie really committed suicide or not. And he was like, I know it can happen because it happened to me. You know, like, I was so obsessed with getting ghosts that he always seemed to wiggle out that, you know, and then I planted evidence and my ass got in trouble. And yeah, I know that somebody can get to that point where they feel like it's easier for them to just be out than, you know, to go through the whole situation again. And so, yeah. So then we're back at school. No, I'm sorry. Monet talks to Lorenzo. She meets up with Lorenzo, and she tells him everything. She gives him the whole breakdown on who Mecca is and how Mecca and Dante is the same person and been playing them all along. He's really the connect. She told him about the plan to kill him, how they had to lie to him and make them think that Cain was going to kill Lorenzo, but we really ain't going to do that. And Lorenzo was like, well, let me do it. I need to do it. I got to take care of the family. And she was like, nah, I need to be the one to put that bullet in him. Like, it's going to be me. She said, do you trust me? You know that I'm down for I'll do anything for my kids. And he was like, yeah, I know you take care. I know that you got your kids back. She said, okay, then you need to trust me with this plan on how this plan is going to work. She said, but you got to get Diana and Drew on board. Because remember, Diana and Drew still giving her the side eye because of the whole situation, because of Diana's dumbass put out there. So she's giving Diana, still giving Diana the side eye. So Lorenzo goes to talk to them and convinces them to get on board with the plan. And of course, Diana still ain't really feeling it, but Drew was like, I'm down. And so Diana, she grudgingly goes along with the plan. But you could definitely tell that she is just not really feeling it. So we go back down to the school, and Brayden is packing up his room. His daddy done pulled him out of school. Tarik is like, I appreciate it, thanks for looking out for me. Like he said, but, and Brayden said something about the stash being gone. And Tarik was like, he said, did you clean out the stash? And Tarik was like, when the hell would I have had time to do that? Like, have you not realized what my last 48 hours have been like? And Brayden was like, well, the stash is gone. And then Tarik realized that it must have been Diana when she came by the room. He said, she must have used my code. She got me, But at this point, Tarik really don't care no more. Like, he's over it. And while they're talking, he tells Brayden he's out the game. He was like, look, I'm done. It's a wrap for me. And Brayden is like, man, come on, bro. And he was like, nah, for real. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm out. So while they're having this conversation, Cain walks in on them. And, of course, Cain hits, Brayden with that situation taken care of. And Brayden was like, yeah, it's done. So I'm like, Tarik is giving him that look. And I'm like, see, at some point, Tarik is going to figure out what that conversation was. It'll be next season. It'll be down the road. But he's going to figure out what that whole thing was. But him and Cain end up having a conversation, basically how to kill your daddy and get away with it. I mean, he's telling him about, it's not as easy as you think. You got to be ready. You got to be real about it. Like, it stays with you forever. Once you do it, it can't be undone. The whole yada, 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 yada. And of course, Cain is like, I'm ready. I can do it. I'm good. And Tarik was like, yeah, okay, all right. You thinking you ready, then, whatever. So Zeke goes down to the police station to see what information they have on Carrie's death. And he ends up talking to the same police detective. And he was like, so are we sure that it was a suicide? And he was like, I mean, based on the medical examiners, what the medical examiner's saying, it was a suicide. He was like, why? Do you know something different? And Zeke was like, nah, I just wanted to, make sure. So then later on in the episode, we see the detective calls Zeke back in and shows him pictures of Monet at a traffic light a couple of blocks from Carrie's house around the time that Carrie died. And he was like, is this what you wanted to know? Like, is this the information you wanted to know? And Zeke lied and covered it up, but of course he left out of there thinking that Monet had lied to him again and that Monet did kill Carrie. Now, while this is going on, Tate is getting exactly what he wants. The DNC dude then showed the congressman those pictures from the Halloween party. And the congressman was like, look, first of all, how did you even get these pictures? And this was like 20 years ago. Like, who cares? And the DNC dude was like, yeah, well, I knew you 20 years ago. And those pictures are pretty accurate. Like, you were an asshole, And Tate, of course, is there gloating and being the asshole that he is. And the dude was like, yeah, I'm not giving him nothing. Like, I'm not giving him nothing. He said, I'll ride it out. It's a scandal. I'll ride it out for 6 months. It'll be hard. And at the end of 6 months, everybody will forget about it and move on. And Tate was like, you know what? You're right. That is the plan. And at the end of 6 months, when everybody has forgotten about it, this freshman congressman will endorse you for this next Senate seat. And then we all win. And he realizes that he pretty much doesn't have much of an option. And so he agrees to do it, right? He agrees to do it. Later on in the episode, we see Tate talking to his brother, letting his brother know that he about to be the next congressman. His brother is still mad at him. Basically like, you got me fired from my job. Even though last week they said he didn't get fired, but whatever. And Tate was like, well, I want you to be the head of my security. Okay. Now, Tarik decided that he's going to forward his phone. He's going to forward the phone that Dante wants him to use with the tracker on it to his real phone. So the phone can stay at the dorm while he can still move around and do whatever he needs to do. We see Kane talking to Dante back at the penthouse. Monet lets them know that she didn't talk to Lorenzo and none of the kids are coming with them. Zeke's not coming. So it's basically just going to be them. And Dante is like, well, maybe we should, postpone this. Maybe we should stay around a little bit longer, try to convince Zeke. Maybe this isn't the right time. And Monet was like, no, this is the right time. We gotta, we need to roll out now. Lorenzo taking shots at us and shit. Like, we gotta go. So Dante sets to meet with Tarik. He's like, meet me tomorrow night at the hangar. I'll give you what you want. I'll give you, the drugs or whatever. I mean, the paperwork. And, give you the money. Damn. Give you the money for the paperwork. Now, while that's going on, Tarik is really meeting with the lawyer, with his dad's attorney. And his dad lets him know we've officially stopped the, we've officially been able to stop the, adoption. And he was like, are you sure this is what you want? You sure this is what's best for Yaz? And Tarik was like, yeah, this is what's best for her. So then we see Sax roll up on Tarik, and Sax lets Tarik know that Lauren is dead. And of course, he thinks that Tarik did it. And Tarik was like, I didn't have nothing. He was like, you didn't know, did you? And Tarik was like, no. And he was like, well, yeah, she's dead. Supposedly it was a car accident. And of course, Tarik is feeling some kind of way. He immediately goes back and tells Effie about it. And Effie convinces him, basically, forget about it. Sorry. She got caught up. She was a snitch. Whatever. Then Sax goes and tells Davis about it. And basically tells Davis, this is all your fault. And Davis was like, I didn't have nothing to do with that. He was like, I didn't. Because he said, well, you played the tape for... Because he thinks he played the tape for Tarik and for Kane. But he didn't. He only played the tape for Tarik. And he was like, you let Tarik and Kane hear the tape. And that's why she's dead. And he was like, I didn't do that. Like, I didn't have nothing to do with it. And David says, you just worry about that case that I had you working on so you could get basically his brother. But, of course, Davis doesn't know it's his brother. But basically get my brother out of jail. Like, that's what I need you to work on. Now, while all of this is going on, we get a blast from the past. Tasha St. Patrick is in the house. We see her in witness protection. Now, I'm not going to be nitpicky about the fact that she's sitting there with a picture of Tarik, Yasmin, and his twin, Knowing good well that you in witness protection, you would not have no family picture sitting on your damn piano. It looks like she's working as some sort of college professor because she gets a knock at her door and the person says, Professor, whatever. But come to find out, it's Tamika. And Tamika has Yaz with her. So when Tarik stopped the adoption, he got Tamika to help him arrange for Yaz to end up with Tasha. Now it looks like they done changed their names again and they're going to relocate them again. And she asked about Tarik. And Tamika was like, I don't know nobody by that name. I don't know no Tarik. And she said, as far as I'm concerned, you're better off basically leaving that alone. Now, while that's going on, Tarik is actually in one of the SUVs watching this whole thing take place. Now, again, I ain't going to be nitpicky and try to figure out where the hell Tasha is and how Tarik got there. But I refuse to believe that they would have kept Tasha close enough that they could get to her in a 2-hour drive or an hour drive away. Her face was too recognizable out in the New York streets. She was on the news. It was too much. But whatever. I'm not even going to be nitpicky about it, child. We at the damn season finale. I'm going to let it go. But while he's talking to Sax, because Sax is in the car with him, he asked Sax about Dante. And Sax is like, oh yeah, he's a high-end informant. He says, listen, if it wasn't for Dante, we wouldn't have been able to get half the information we got on your father. And, Tarik was like, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, going back to what Dante kind of threw, the little nugget he threw at him last week. So, while all of that is going on, child, Tarik is back in town, and he actually ends up meeting up with Drew. And he explains what they're going to do with this bag. So they found 2 more bags that look exactly like Dante's bag. And they're going to basically play 3-card Monty with the bags. Drew's going to have 1 bag. Diana's going to have 1 bag. Is it Lorenzo had a bag? Shit, I don't know. But they're going to basically go off in all these different directions with the bags. And that way Dante's men won't know which bag is the real bag, which bag has the real information in it. We see Dante handing off the bag to Lorenzo later on and giving Diana a bag. And we found out that McVeigh, the one that used to work for Dante that Lorenzo thought was working for him, found out he was just a snitch and a spy for for Dante, and he let Dante know that there was something going on with the bags and that he would keep an eye on it. Now, as Drew was pulling off, he gets a text from Everett saying, I need to talk to you. It's an emergency. I need to see you. Now, Drew goes up to campus, which he had absolutely no reason to go up to campus because I don't care what emergency it is. You tell him you see him the next day. Because y'all got life and death shit going on. Y'all got a whole Ocean's 11 scam that y'all running. You don't have time to go talk to your boyfriend. Boy, bye. But anyway, they also tell Diana, don't look in the bag. That's a surefire way for her to look in the bag by telling her, don't look in the bag. Stupid. Just stupid. So, we see Tarik and Kane rolling up to the spot. Lorenzo had a re-up with Dante, and that's where Kane thought he was going to be shooting Lorenzo. So they get there, and him and Tarik are doing what they do best. They arguing, child. They bickering, going back and forth. But then Lorenzo pulls up, and they actually roll up into the spot. And just as Kane looks like he's about to take the shot, Tarik is like, we're not here to kill Lorenzo. We here to have his back, but they know we're here. And as soon as Tarik says that, it's a whole gunfire shootout situation. And they end up killing all of Dante's men. But this is how Dante knows that he's been compromised, because he's waiting for a text back from his boy, which I don't understand why Lorenzo opened up his phone and he saw the text. I don't know why he didn't respond to the text and just say, we got the bag, or the bag's been secured, because he wants to know whether they got the bag or not. All he had to say was, we got the bag, but whatever. So that's when Dante, he knew something was wrong. I don't think he knew what happened, but he knew something was wrong because he never got the text that he was waiting for. So he calls his handler and tells his handler, look, I've been compromised. Now, he don't know what actually the compromise was, but he know he's been compromised. So they also realize that Drew is in danger because whoever must have been following Drew, and so he's in danger. So next we see Drew talking to Everett. Everett is mad because he said he lost his ID, and when he went to security told him that he was in the unauthorized area of the campus, And he thinks that Drew took the ID, and Drew was like, "You really pulled me up here for that? Like, this is not important." And he was like, "Well, me being able to trust you is important." And they go back and forth, but you know, he ends up having to go to practice, and Drew tells him have a great practice. And next thing you know, Dante's boys roll up on him, and they realize that the bag that Drew has is a decoy. So now they beating him up to find out where the real bag is, and they're eventually gonna kill him. But who comes swooping in like Spider-Man? Kane. And they basically end up whooping both of their ass, and they put him in the trunk. Because Drew was getting ready to shoot old boy, but he was like, "Nah, not right here. No, we can't do it now. We can't do it right here." Dante told Monet, "You tell Tarik to meet us here. Tell her don't meet us down at the hangar. You tell him to meet us here." So while they waiting for Tarik to show up, we see back at the house, Lorenzo done made it back to the house, and he's talking to Diana. And he told Diana's acting funny, and he was like, "What was in the bag?" And she was like, "I didn't look in the bag. You told me not to look in the bag." He was like, "Whatever. You looked in the bag. What was in the bag?" So she tells Lorenzo, "Well, there were bank accounts for all of us in the bag." So somehow or another, Lorenzo got it in his head that I guess Monet is going to double cross him or whatever. And he goes running off. He goes down to the hangar, and he ends up shooting Zeke because he mistakes Zeke for Dante. Now, what in the world made him think that Zeke was Dante? I don't know. But he shot Zeke, and then he rolls off and goes back home, child. Now, while that's going on, Tarik is showing up at the penthouse just as Monet pulls the gun on Dante. And Monet lets Dante know, "Look, I've been on to you from the beginning. Like, no, you're not going to take me away from my family." And yada, 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 boo, boo, boo. She ends up killing Dante before Tarik can get there. Because remember, that's the one thing that Tarik said. Tarik was like, "The only thing I'm asking is that you give me an opportunity to get my money, and then it's whatever." But she killed Dante before he got his money. She gave him a bullshit excuse about how, you know, he was going to shoot you as soon as you got off the elevator, which was probably true. Because remember, he did have his straps, and he was waiting for Tarik to get off that elevator. So he probably was, to be perfectly honest with you. So her and Tarik, they wipe the cameras, they clean up, whatever, they get out of there. Now, how they got out of there, that is not my conversation. I don't know. They snuck by the cameras, whatever. She gets back to the house, and she asks Kane, "Are we good?" Kane was like, "Yeah, we good." And again, I'm just like, okay. Lorenzo comes home, and just as they get all home, it's coming on the news that Dante has been killed because, of course, you know, he has this front as this businessman. So that's all over the news that this, you know, billionaire tycoon businessman was shot dead in his penthouse. Then we get on the scene, and we see our cop, the internal affairs lady from Ghost. She was his handler. And I'm thinking, now how she get fired and disgraced from being a cop, but she all of a sudden working for a DEA, and she's the handler for one of the most notorious informants in the... Okay. Anyway, well, they don't have anything on the security camera, but they do end up finding a grainy photo of a kid of somebody in the lobby, and of course she immediately knows that it's Tarik. We see Davis visiting his brother in jail, where he's telling him that he's still got the, you know, Sachs working on his case. He said, you know, they were able to prove that the person who did the crime is 4 inches taller. And he was like, "Yeah, well, you might not want him to push too hard because you're 4 inches taller. You might not want them to keep going down that road." Sachs is talking to Jenny and basically telling Jenny, "Listen, I'm gonna basically I'm gonna flip on Davis, and I'll work for you. You know, I'll be a little informant for you, whatever." Effie and Tarik in love. Tarik telling Effie to transfer down to, you know, from Stanford to his school. Yasmin found a letter that Tarik gave her, basically saying, "I'm going to find you one way or another. When I get grown, I'm going to find you." We get to the dinner table, and everybody's at the dinner table except for Zeke. And then Monet ends up getting a phone call with them informing her that Zeke is dead. And that's where it ends. That's the end of the season. See y'all season 3. Talk to y'all later. Peace.